If you will not be turned, you will be destroyed. Young fool.
This is something I've wanted to talk about for a while, and because of that, this video might be slightly different to what I usually do. Although then again, it is just me shitting on something, so it can't be that different. Star Wars Battlefront 2. Probably the biggest travesty of 2017, and in my opinion, one of the biggest game flops of this decade. It's something I've been meaning to talk about for a while, because not only am I a fan of Star Wars, but I am also a huge fan of the Battlefront series in itself. I got the original Star Wars Battlefront 2 for Christmas all the way back in 2007. Since that fateful day, I've owned the game on 3 different consoles, have probably put thousands and thousands of hours into the game, and I still play and thoroughly enjoy it today. So you can imagine in 2015 when I heard the news that Battlefront was being rebooted, you can imagine I was pretty excited. It's probably worth mentioning Battlefront 2015 quickly because that's where all this starts. I played that game and I was pretty disappointed. I don't think I got more than 20 hours of enjoyment out of it. There was no single player, it was just an arcade shooter with a few maps. And it got boring very quickly. However, within a year of this game being released, EA was already talking about Battlefront 2, which apparently promised to give us everything that the Battlefront 2015 didn't. So you can imagine I got even more excited. You can sense a pattern here. I get excited and I get continually let down. It's great. It's just great.
2 years ago, we launched Star Wars Battlefront, and we got a lot of feedback. And what we hope you'll see is that we've addressed all of the feedback and gone even further.
So essentially what was promised was a new Battlefront game with a single player campaign, free and frequent DLC updates, and as well as that, maps, characters and heroes from across the 3 Star Wars eras. Now on paper, that sounds great, doesn't it? But what you also have to consider is that this is EA, the company that has twice been voted the worst company in America. So I'm sure if you've got half a working brain cell and have heard anything about this game over the past year and a bit, you'll know they screwed it up big time. What we instead got was a generic first-person shooter game with a Star Wars paint job. And not only that, it was packed with microtransactions that affected the balance of the game.
Now that's a pleasure.
Loot boxes gave you weapons, abilities and heroes that essentially made you ungodly powerful, which meant it was pay to win. If you paid to get these loot boxes, you were in an instant advantage over every other player. Not only that, but certain heroes, for example Darth Vader, were locked behind a 40-hour grind, which meant you basically had to spend a working week grinding at this game to unlock the character. Of course though, if you don't want to spend those 40 hours, you know what you can do? You can buy them! Ha ha!
EA.
Microtransactions.
It's in the game.
Despite hearing all this negative press though, I still got the game for Christmas 2017. Interestingly, a decade earlier, I got the original Star Wars Battlefront 2 for Christmas, so nobody cares about that actually. And when I sat down and played the single player campaign, what I was greeted with was a 5-6 hour mediocre job that was basically just depending on your nostalgia. I mean, there's a mission where you play as Luke Skywalker and all you do is run around killing bugs. That is just awful. What made all this worse though was that the new Battlefront 2 had inferior gameplay to the old Battlefront 2 that was made in 2005. Obviously it goes without saying that Battlefront 2005's Galactic Conquest mode is just the best thing ever. You picked a side and you battled it out either against the AI or a friend and basically fought to take control of the galaxy. When battling on the ground you were greeted with these massive, extremely cool open area maps that had tanks dotted around that you could jump into. Not just your tanks, but opponents' tanks as well. On top of that, most vehicles required 2 people to operate, which means you had to work with friends or the AI in order to succeed. There was also a massive amount of choice, both in land and space battles. On the land, for example, you could either chase down opponents, killing them and stopping their assault, or you could press forward and try to take command posts, which meant you gained ground and allowed more people to spawn in. You had several different classes of troops you could choose from, each that had their own strengths and weaknesses, meaning you had to rely on your team or your friends to push you forward and defend your weak spots. Space battles were even more interesting and had even more choice. You could either run around after opponents, destroying their ships. This didn't give you any points towards your victory, but it slowed and stalled your opponents. Or you could take a bomber and start attacking the enemy ship, which did grant you points towards victory, but at the cost of being taken out by the ships. Finally, if you really felt gutsy, you could take a ship, land in the opponent's base, and start destroying it from the inside. There were so many different options you could take. Battlefront 2017's gameplay in comparison is much more restrictive and bland, and it takes all the fun away from the original. The gameplay itself is very pre-planned. There's always something telling you to do something, or when to do something, or how to do something, whereas before you were just dropped on a field and given free rein. Battlefront 2017 also has less classes in it, because why not? And to add insult to that, all balance and teamwork is completely gone. If by some miracle you manage to get your hands on a vehicle, that vehicle is one-man and basically indestructible. It's very hard to destroy for anyone else on the field. Weapons, ships, and heroes were all locked behind either a grind wall or a purchase, which means the two teams weren't evenly matched. Space battles are just as uninteresting. Your ships have no flaws whatsoever. You just run around in a ship shooting things until you win. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, Harry, this is all old news. This is all under the bridge now because there's been a patch. EA has fixed it all. There's a new progression system. Microtransactions are only cosmetic now. It's all been fixed. Well, you see, it hasn't. There are still two very, very big problems as a result of all the microtransaction scandals that have allegedly been fixed. The first problem is, it should have been fixed in the first place. Ultimately, when Battlefront 2 was released, it was a rushed mishmash of a game that was designed to get as much money out of you in as little time as possible. And if it weren't for the massive uproar that got Disney involved, of all people, EA wouldn't have changed any of this. This leads into the second and much bigger problem, which is because EA spent so much time fixing the game, they've had no time to actually add any content to the game.
And are committed to keeping this community together. With themed seasons of content post-launch for all players at no additional charge.
You might remember at the start of this rant, I mentioned that EA, upon releasing Battlefront 2, promised free and frequent DLC updates. Emphasis on frequent because they've been anything but frequent, my friend, and that's because they've been so caught up in trying to repair this broken game.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you
the content we promised.
What? How can you do this? This is outrageous.
Other than some new maps, new characters and new game modes, nothing's really been added to the game in a very long time. And for a game that's advertised as a long-term game that will be updated for a long time coming, that isn't really a good thing, is it? I want to draw your attention to this post here, which appeared on the Star Wars Battlefront subreddit a couple months ago. Essentially, it's a leak. It leaked a load of information about Star Wars Battlefront 2's future. Now, when this first appeared, I didn't believe it was real, much like many others, but since then, it's been proved to be real, because in this post, the person talks about a Clone Wars update, which will be coming to Star Wars Battlefront 2 in fall of 2018. And sure enough, a couple weeks ago, that was announced by EA. So now that we know this post is not only truthful, but reasonably accurate, it's probably worth having a look at it and seeing what else is in store for the future of Battlefront 2. And just a few spoilers for you. Haha, that's not looking great either. Put me to sleep. There are 2 points of interest that I found in this post. The first one being that 2 of the studios that worked on the game, Criterion and Motive, are not working for it anymore. The only studio still working on it is DICE. Apparently, to add insult to this, the database is still incredibly full of unresolved bugs that have been there since the beta. So this game isn't really being checked or test played anymore either. It's just been left to dry. And that leads us to perhaps the most interesting and saddening point of this leak, which is apparently the devs have moved to another project. So much like the original Battlefront 2015 reboot, this one has been abandoned within a year of it coming out. And that's just sad. So yes, there was this big patch that removed microtransactions and fixed the progression system, but by the sound of it, that entire patch was pointless because the game's being abandoned anyway. And just to top that all off, in my opinion anyway, I still think the gameplay is incredibly bland, restrictive, and uninteresting, like I explained earlier in this video. The one impression I got from this post is that EA, DICE, whoever's working behind this game right now, have no idea what they're doing. They're completely lost, they've got no direction, and that's saddening. Because this game had such a potential, and much like every other EA game, it went down the shitter quicker than Club Penguin Island. And that's basically all I've got to say. In conclusion, Star Wars Battlefront 2 2017 is a complete mess, and sadly, I don't think it's ever going to get any better, so Thanks very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed. I know this video was a little different and a bit more serious to what I usually make, but as I said, I am a very big fan of the Battlefront series, so I take this stuff semi-seriously at least. If you enjoyed this video, maybe leave a like, drop a subscribe so you see more content from me, and check out my social medias in the description so you never miss an update. There is a strange noise coming from outside my window. What is that? Oh, okay. There's a pigeon on my roof. Please leave. Anyway, that'll be all from me. I've been horrifically disfigured Luke Skywalker. Actually, no one wants to see that. Put that shit on, boy. I've been horrifically disfigured Luke Skywalker, and I will see you all in the next video. Farewell. Oh yeah, and subscribe to my channel, by the way.